99% of people in their lifetime won't start anything. You think you're late to everything.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that every day.
In 2005, we thought we were late to the internet. I thought I was late to Instagram when we started Midday. You always think you're late, but you're never late. Super successful entrepreneurs, what did they do? The business is at $30 million of revenue and profitable now. If you told me, Nick, how do you get to $100 million real quick tomorrow? I know exactly how I would run this playbook. One,
we in it, sir.
We're in it to win it.
Yes, sir.
What's doing, my man?
Entrepreneurship since 16.
Let's
we
go.
gotta talk about it.
Let's go.
At 21 years old, you lost $70,000 of friends and family money.
Yeah, launching richrebellion.com.
Exactly. I want to know because you said you failed at many things.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of those failures?
I think if we start at Rich Rebellion, that was the classic, me and my best friend just wanting to start something. And I think that's like when we first met, that was some of the stuff that I was talking about is 99% of people in their lifetime won't start anything. And I think to build the muscle, to actually build the confidence, to build the business, you need to just start. And for us, it was, timelines are a bit fuzzy, but let's say Facebook had just expanded past, they were sign in through a university ID only at the time. So you needed to have a university ID. That's how early we're talking. So Facebook was just at that point where they were releasing everybody with any email could log into Facebook. Me and my buddy were always like into action sports, watching it. So X Games was pretty big at the time. And there was no defined way to become a pro. So when you think about NBA, MLB, NHL, it's pretty defined. You go, you play the top of your sport, you go to college, or you go to like the juniors, you got to be the best there. Then you get drafted, you usually play in like a minor league of some sort, or you go straight to the pros. There's this like really defined way to get there. And at the time, action sports had no real defined way to get to like the pro level. You were kind of discovered through mixtapes to a certain extent. You were discovered at the park. You were kind of signed. It was obscure. There was like a lot of obscurity to the whole thing. And we were like, hey, what if we kind of took what Facebook was doing as a platform and allowed anybody in any action sport, whether it was snowboarding, extreme skiing, you name it, to load footage and be able to be rated by their peers. And based on that rating, you would kind of rank on a leaderboard, and then our job was to match you with sponsors and help you get to the pro level.
Okay.
There's so many things wrong with this concept in retrospect, but at the time it was the best thing since sliced bread in our minds, right? Me and my buddy were like, this is the coolest thing, and we need to pursue it. We were at first year University of Ottawa, and we just went all in, like literally all in.
And this is the time you guys raised money through friends.
Yeah, friends and family. We got literally friends, mother, cousin, and we got about 70 grand to launch this thing, and we lost it all in about 24 months. 24 months. But like, I mean, things happen. I would say we ran out of steam in the belief of it, but we got pretty far. I mean, Skull Candy at the time was huge. They were the number one headphone. This is prior to everything. And I was speaking with the president of that company, and we convinced them to be our major sponsor. So we brought Osiris shoes on board. We had
same thing with Zoo York.
Yeah, we had Zoo York. And then we had, I'm forgetting the shoe brand that we had, but long story short is like we had the major sponsors of that arena at that time, to the point we were being invited out to the X Games, sitting front row. We were with the Maloof brothers, who were these crazy billionaires at the time, and they invited us out because everybody thought what we were doing is dope, and we just had no fucking clue what we were doing. And I think from there, one of the key learnings was the internet was the coolest place to win. You just take that momentum of learning. And all I know is that I had the bug of I needed to make money online. And that was just like, that was all that was going to happen. And I was just committed to doing it.
Why make money online?
It was just everything was happening, you know? I think the number one thing that I know is I was just with a friend who owns this company called NathanJames.com. They're a monster online furniture retail right now.
Okay.
We were just talking about this because we started RichRebellion.com together, right? He's my best friend. And you think you're late to everything.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that every day.
Yeah. You think you're late to everything. I could tell you, man, in 2005, we thought we were late to the internet. We thought we were late to, you know, building web applications in 2009. I thought I was late to Instagram when we started Midday. I mean, you always think you're late, but you're never late. It's like, that's how fast this thing is going. And I just think online, you asked the question, why online? It's the platform that makes the most sense to me to be native at in your thought process, no matter what you're building. And we can talk about how like look at the business I'm in right now. It's a manufacturing business that services retailing, but it still started with a native online mindset because everybody exists online.
That's where the attention is.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just like,
yeah. And then before Midday, you know, if we fast forward a little bit, you had an oats company.
yeah. Yeah, well, we tried it. There was, so before so I go work at this company called Dynamo Media, which is essentially, we go out, we build this ad tech platform that really was fully involved in the online gaming space. So like casino space, and adult space. And that was a very lucrative experience for me. And what I realized in that experience was that I saw the underbelly of the internet. Here's the thing with the underbelly of the internet. It's not scalable. So yeah, you can make your first million in it, no doubt. But when you start to meet other like super successful entrepreneurs that we're talking like that are making monster amounts of money, what did they do? They didn't live in the underbelly of the internet. They created true value for consumers. What all I knew as my North Star was I wanted to take all of my learnings from how the underbelly of the internet worked in terms of persuading people to buy shit and do it with a product that delivered on its promise, and take brand, like typical brand marketing that you saw from, you know, all of our favorite companies growing up, and try to marry those two worlds. And I thought there was something very special that could be possible when you start to take extreme performance marketing ideologies and marry them with like
Brand
true
marketing.
traditional brand marketing.
Okay.
And
Okay.
seeing those two worlds intersect is the most beautiful thing in the world. And I think a large part to the frameworks as to why Midday Squares is successful. And we could touch on any of those points that if you want. I'm pretty much an open book.
No, I appreciate that because I'm here to learn at the end of the day. So these underbelly tips and tricks that you learned, what are some of the major ones? So say if, you know, you were to start another Midday or any other company for that matter, what would be some of those learnings that you would apply today?
Yeah. So I think one, reverse engineering from the traffic source and the market is really, really important. So I'm thinking this through because I really want to deliver it in the simplest format.
Yeah, no, go for it.
When you, my brain is really good at pattern recognition. And one thing that was clear to me was that if I wanted to do something, I needed to do it in a market that was massive, that played to a marketing channel. And you could choose any channel for this idea. Let's just take Facebook for this example of where you can reverse engineer your idea for momentum. So we were just talking about momentum before with the crew here before the podcast started. And momentum is everything from, does this market have incredible mergers and acquisitions activity in it? Does this market have money flowing in it? Does this market have massive consumers ready to purchase it? Is this niche or non-niche? From my learnings, what I had noticed was that it seemed like if you build a cool snacking company, that all of these things would be in your favor, and that a channel like Facebook or Instagram, both organically and paid, would allow us to scale massively. So now let's unpack that.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? If you're starting a company that sells nutraceuticals are vitamins, powders, potions,
your supplement
company. There's a momentum to that, but there's also heavy regulation and a lot of scrutiny on the way the Facebook marketing platforms look at the way those companies are advertised.
Yeah.
Like deeply. And so there's friction built into that system. When you take a chocolate bar, there's almost no friction that you can find online. Like zero. We're talking zero friction. That every platform openly accepts the level of marketing that we want to do. We could be very, very loud with it. We could push the line with it. And it's a happy-go-lucky product that you can't really cross the line too much on. And so the platform allows for like massive scale. Everybody on the platform is potentially a consumer that's willing to talk about it. Like there's very few people on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok that are not willing to interact with Midday Squares. Now, if you go start, I don't know, a nicotine style company, like you're not going to have that same freedom that we have. And so in choosing the end product, what I had learned was I just wanted a market that already had everything built into it to amplify it. So there was this incredible market of editorial people that want to write about Midday Squares that already existed. We didn't have to go convince anybody to like really why this made sense. It was just like, no, there's a ridiculous amount of bloggers and news writers that talk about new snacks. Like that is just it. We just need to show up as the best possible version and scream as loud as possible. And there was a high probability that top media outlets would talk about it. And so a lot of people, I think, take for granted how intentional the choice to make Midday Squares look, feel, and taste the way it is, and the product design that it is at the price point it is, how intentional that was in order to back out our product into a mass market. Whereas all the products that I tried before didn't have necessarily inherent distribution massively built into it. And that's really worked for Midday Squares. So like we were talking, it was just like, we were talking, you remember when we first met and you're like, you were saying like, how's fundraising and how do you like, it hasn't been hard because the market for consumer snacking is already there. You literally just have to show up and be worthy of it, and it just flows.
Do you think an integral part of success of Midday Squares is the timing itself? Because Midday was one of the first snacking companies to do what they do. You know, Midday, as you say, it's a media brand. Mm-hmm. It's not a typical company. Like, you know, it's fucking loud.
Super loud.
It's a band.
Yeah.
You guys have album covers basically.
Yeah, we do it all the time.
So do you think timing was a huge part?
So yes and no. Yes and no, because we're not the first to have done it. We're the first to have found our groove in it And I think that's like, you know how we just opened this podcast and you feel like you're too late.
Yeah.
But everyone, when we launched Midday Squares, I mean, we were too late. The bar markets were saturated. Everybody and their mother had a protein bar. Like it was, you couldn't get more saturated in the category that we were going into. But if you just step back and breathe and take a moment, saturation is like the most beautiful thing, because here's what saturation means. Why does a market get saturated? It gets saturated because usually people are blowing up and making money. And so everybody starts to hear that there's this thing happening, and then they come.
Yeah.
And then they come. And then next thing you know, everybody's showing up, right? And then the market starts to get saturated. But the problem is that people are lazy by nature. And so when they show up to these saturated markets, they don't use their brain. So they come and they're like, that thing is working. I'm going to make an exact replica of that thing, change the packaging, change the ingredient, and show up. So my definition of saturation is that saturation is actually an indication that this is a massive market full of fish, and your job as an entrepreneur is to figure out the white space in there, and that it's not too late. It's just nobody's using their brain anymore. And so for us, there was a few ways that we had to create differentiation. One being moving the product into the fridge and really being the first of our category in a new location, which is like really a blue ocean strategy. If you haven't read that book, great book, talks about this exact thing, is like, just go into the area that you need to go into to be differentiated. And so we're a chocolate bar that doesn't sit next to any chocolate bar. We're in our own little area. And it makes it harder, but it also is a white space for us. So it's a lot harder because we have to convince people to put us in an area that's not normal. But it also allows us to avoid competing with the rest of the saturated chocolate bar market, you know, kind of makes it new and fresh. And then two is how we show up needs to be differentiated as well too. And so that's where we had this idea of just, again, pattern recognition. Elon Musk, it just makes a lot of sense the way he markets himself. Just like kind of in your face, loud and outspoken, doesn't act like the way people would expect him to act. He just acts like himself and talks like a normal human that's not scripted and rehearsed. Like it's just rough him. Around the edges and him. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. Like, why don't we try something of that sort? Then you had, you know, there's this joke, celebrity packaged goods. Like all of the new consumer goods is just basically a celebrity. And so like, let's break that down. What's a celebrity? You know, a celebrity, someone with a following. Well, how did they get a following? They did something that was interesting. Why couldn't us building this business be interesting? Why can't we celebritize ourselves? Why can't we rely on ourselves instead of having to rely on signing, you know, an athlete, an actor, or an influencer? Why can't we just become that? Okay, that seems like an interesting idea. And then I think the real aha moment that came from both my partners, Jake and Les, was, why don't we treat this thing like a band? Like that was really the moment of music's figured out how to culturally connect with consumers really, really well.
And what does that mean?
Like, why do we love? I just asked myself this question. I'm like of the generation, I grew up watching MTV. And so like, what did I love so much about the musicians that I followed? It started with the song, but then the music video was super interesting. The behind the scenes, watching them on cribs. And then the idea really becomes, you become obsessed with their lives, of what they are and how they're achieving their success. And that was like, that for us was, well, what if we do that too? What if we start to show up in a way that feels like you're watching a band? And so much of that comes down to, what did I learn from the underbelly of the internet, is how you show up is really important And our brains are so good at identifying and connecting dots that if I start putting out album covers, whether you like it or not, if you are watching us, you're like, fuck, those guys are rock stars. They feel like it. They look like it. What's coming out when you see the picture, you're like, I've seen that before. And I've seen that with bands, like, you know, like,
yeah.
And so you start to create this allure of these characters that are really just who we tapped into who we are naturally, but we just blew up those characters. And people don't want to follow ordinary people. They just don't.
Because it's too saturated?
It's just ordinary, right? Like ordinary's everywhere. It's our job to show up in a large way. And eventually you start to believe and act like it's so much that you become it, right? It was like, we were doing the photo shoots and then we got in our first year a deal with Adidas to do a photo shoot.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. Like that was manifested. You know, we get a call one day for an Adidas campaign and you're like, oh, we did this campaign. Casey Neistat used to do that too, right? He just filmed the Nike commercial. They didn't hire him. And eventually they saw the commercial and they're like, fuck, like we want you to make a Nike commercial. And I wouldn't say it was that intuitive for us, but because we started showing up in a certain way, our life started to actually become that. We started getting invited to things. People want to have us on podcasts, on stage. And you're just like, next thing you know, you're performing. You know what I mean? Like, and you're speaking and you're going to universities and this allure that you created became real.
Was there any other company like in the space being as loud as Midday or was as authentic, or it was you guys?
I don't think anybody's pushed the limit to the transparency that we've shown. I think people have ever. I don't think anybody's ever put a camera in a therapy session with founders and watch people talk about potentially getting a divorce. Like,
dude,
I don't know.
That was fucking crazy.
It's crazy, but that's what's required to win in this day and age. And it's not like, yo, here's the bottom line. Building a company from 0 to $100 million of revenue, I don't think has ever been recorded. And we have every single piece of footage from the day we started the company. I don't think that's ever been documented. And along the way, so many people were like, you guys must script this shit. And my answer is just go try to build a company from 0 to $100 million and tell me that what you see us go through isn't real. Like it's impossible to not have all of the content in the world that people want to watch. I've had, you know, an employee die on us, like literally at a company retreat. Like there's nothing more real about watching the journey of an entrepreneur try to do this. It's so crazy.
Why do you think no other company ever tried that?
It's scary. You know, it's really, really scary. It could break you in many ways. It's put extra pressure on us. It's caused people to not want to work with us. It's caused people to not want to join our company. It's caused people to hate us. So all I know is I can't tell you if this is going to work or not. I mean, there's still a large possibility this whole thing crashes and burns at some point.
I mean, pre-valuation is $35 million right
now.
Yeah.
And I would argue, you know, when you'll see what the next one is, we've really, I mean, the business is at $30 million of revenue and profitable now, and we're growing, but the risks that we're taking to continue to grow these things are huge because we built a manufacturing plant and that requires continuous scale. But putting it all out there has scared a lot of people. That being said, I would say of the 40% of the people that deeply love us, they love us so much that's where the biggest learning in doing this is especially when you listen to, creators or musicians. It's like, you don't want everybody to love you. You definitely 100% want a large chunk of people to hate you, because then if a large chunk of people don't hate you, then that means that the love that you're getting from the people that love you is not big enough to be that super spreader, that army of real people that will show up and kill for you.
You really believe that?
Yes, I really believe that. Because if you're everything to everybody, you're just mundane. Like you're not occupying people's brain space. And it's really important to occupy brain space, in my opinion, when you're in an industry that is the most competitive in the world.
See, I feel like so many people know about all these ideas and whatnot, being authentic and whatnot, but nobody executed it.
Yeah. But I would argue too, like, people have tried to, we've had so many people copy the Midday Squares playbook and literally no beef towards them. I think what people don't realize is how fast you burn out. Like, we've been going for 6.5 years. And so I see these, in the last 3 years, you've seen people start with the Midday Squares kick, and then they start to realize, oh, I got to put out videos nonstop. My life is falling apart. My wife hates me. My husband hates me. And to keep it going throughout, and you just see them fall off, right? They just fall off one by one because the pressure to do it and document it is bananas. The only ones that I see still doing it are creator first companies. But all the ones that I've seen try to become creators through the company have burnt out, because it's really like massively fucked up to go through.
What was the biggest obstacle? Or like the biggest, it was like, fuck, man, I don't think, because you have mentioned that like you were so fucking tired that you were okay, that if you didn't wake up the next morning, you're fine. You have said that you deal with depression. So you decided to do one of the toughest things. Yeah,
because it's just like, I believed I could, and I needed to scratch that itch. It was completely driven from, some people read the media every day and they say I could do something and they just never do it. They're like, oh, fuck that, I could do that too.
Yeah.
But they don't do it. And so I was like, I was seeing these businesses start, and I'm like, I really believe we could do that. Like, I believe that I could join forces with some people and make this happen. And it was just something that I needed to do. And I was not going to be able to go on in life without scratching that itch. It was just very important. It was masochistic in certain senses, that it was like, this is so hard and I want to do it.
With what you know now,
mm-hmm.
Do you think you can make the oats company work?
Maybe. I think what I know now, though, is you reverse engineer from shelf to production. Like if I had to start a CPG company again, one, there's a lot of data you can get to understand retail markets. So there's this company called Nielsen's, there's Spins, that could tell you literally where white space exists in a market. So you could go in and you can hire them to literally tell you, where's the white space in dairy? Where's the white space in aisle 4 baked goods? And they'll give it to you.
How much does it cost? Something
so
like this?
Yeah, probably above, $30,000. But here's the caveat though. So every entrepreneur has to hustle, right?
Of course.
You could get that shit by speaking to the VCs and just networking in that community enough. I've seen it because I've dealt with it. There are people that are going to be able to give you the data, whether it's brokers that represent CPG companies at grocery stores. I mean, people have this data, And it's not going to be easy to get. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy to get, but you can get it. And then you could also kind of do it yourself. So you just literally walk in to a Target or a Whole Foods, a Walmart, and you just go to the location, because it's so important to choose your location at a grocery store first. And I'll explain. The reason is that buyers are territorial in a grocery store. You don't just go into a grocery store and present to the grocery store. You're either presenting to like aisle 5 bakery or this person or produce, and you need to understand the model of that category. So typically this is the way people create CPG companies, which is very like the way Midday Squares did it. To a certain extent, I have a good idea. I make it in my kitchen or I produce it. I choose a price, then I choose packaging, then I go to market. Now, in this process, you've fucked up already because you have no idea where you're going to put this thing in the grocery store yet, and you kind of wing it last minute. And then you have no idea what the price needs to be at the shelf for it to even make sense. So let me explain. You think you have a hot cookie brand, and the category that you chose at the grocery store, everything that's there is $4.99. But this thing that you made is like, it comes out to $8.99. But you're like, it's premium, it's amazing. But it's sitting next to these $4.99 items. It's tough that. But if you find another area that has $7.99 items, you can come to market with an $8.99, be top of scale, and find your route without having price comparison happen. So what do I mean by all this is that I like this. If you told me, Nick, how do you get to $100 million real quick tomorrow? I know exactly how I would run this playbook. One, I choose my shelf in the grocery store first. Two, I choose my price point and the package of that price point second. Three, I find the product that I'm going to put in this package. At this point, I still have no idea, right? My first two steps. Sorry?
Where's your demand?
Again, if you don't have access to somebody to give you this data.
Makes sense. Okay. I get it. Yeah.
The probability of a grocery store and an item that's on the shelf for a long time having demand is pretty high. Like if it's on the shelf, it's not like online. There's finite amount of shelf space in a grocery store. If something is there, it's because it's working, or it's not going to be there within 12 months. So yes, you might see new products come, but they ain't lasting longer than like the longest 20 months maybe before you get kicked off a shelf. Like that's if you do the best job in the world at convincing your buyer as to why you need to continue going. Yeah. But typically, like you could go to a grocery store and become boys with the guy at the cash register or the manager, and you can like ask them to print you out. That literally they'll tell you exactly what they sell the most of on a day-to-day basis. And you could start to form a thesis of what you got to go to market with. So anyway, you choose the shelf, you choose the price, then you do the innovation, and you do the innovation with a gross margin perspective. So your gross margin needs to be above, all baked in. And I can even send you a link that we could put in the show notes that is literally the calculator to do this gross margin.
65%.
Right? So that's without freight out, but I've changed my tune a little bit in because of what I've seen. If you include the freight that it's going to cost you to get to a grocery store, anything above 40% is great. Okay. So without freight included, above 60% is great. With freight included, 40% is great. But my calculator breaks this down for you. So you literally just have to put in your numbers and it will tell you. If you cannot get past that 40% hurdle, stop right now. Just stop. Just cut it. Don't even get into the business. But if you can, and you believe you can, then do it because you have real white space. So you've chosen a shelf, you've chosen your package, you've now come up with a product to go in that package, you've priced it appropriately to be on the shelf at a certain price, and then you're ready to go, man.
How do you build? I'll play devil's advocate.
Shoot.
How do you build that passion if what you're looking? Because if you're looking at the shelf first and you're looking at then you're thinking about packaging, right? You haven't even thought about what kind of product you're going to put out in the world.
Correct.
Where's the passion?
Yeah, I would say that's tough. So I think there's a world. I answered the question only through the lens. If you asked me tomorrow to build $100 million business CPG company real quick, that's how I would do it. But if you do have a passion for a category, at least use the same framework and still try to get somewhere, right? You could still use this framework. The point I'm trying to make is don't rely on passion only. And if we go back to what's the difference between 35-year-old Nick and 20-year-old Nick, is frameworks matter, P&Ls matter, how you think about your business strategy matters, understanding the category and the business that you're in matters. Don't be naive to that. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
What you're telling me is basically don't start the stupid clothing company I want to start.
Well, no, because here's what I know is that even if you start this clothing company, so my wife, Midday Squares was a clothing company. We spoke about that. If you go look at our company registration, you'll see that the company changed from Hector Clothing to Midday Squares. We never closed the company. I had invested in her. She was out in New York City trying to build this insane high-end fashion line. She was working with Gaga, Rihanna. I mean, it was epic. Now, to your answer, in life, you sometimes just need to go through shit in order. Like, I could tell you everything today. And at the end of the day, unless you go do it yourself, it doesn't matter. You need to, you're going to have a moment in your life maybe where, because you went through the experience, you're going to connect deeper with what I'm saying today than if I were to just say it to you. And so absolutely start your clothing company. You're going to learn all the shit we talked about anyways, right? Like, by nature, you're going to learn this, because things don't not work for a reason. Like, you don't just start a company that doesn't work because it was like, oh, it didn't work. No, it didn't work for a reason. And it is your job to distill why it didn't work, or it works. So your best case scenario is it works. And your worst case scenario is you have a bunch of fucking learnings as to why it didn't work. And if you're intelligent about it, you keep on iterating. Most people, they stop after that one. They'll launch something, succeed or fail, and they'll never do it again. And they'll never even have a list. Like, on every single thing that I've done in my life, there was always a post-mortem of like, never doing that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never doing that again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not speaking to that person again, not doing it this way. Like, I got a million of those, and that's what's called scar tissue. And if you're intelligent about it, you take it and you just have this list, and it's like the best list in the world, because you just never make those mistakes again. And so the answer to you is like, listen, do whatever the fuck you want. Just make sure you're doing something, momentum. And don't be an idiot about it, as you're going.
Why do you think Leslie's company didn't work?
Oh, so many. One, my wife's 5'1". She was designing clothes for 6'2" models. She's curvy. Everything that she was making was streetwear loungewear for herself. And she was doing high-end streetwear leathers. What I noticed, and they were sick, the stuff. Like, you could Google some of her shit. It was sick. But here's the thing. Nobody in her circle was able to support her. I mean, her leather pants were like $1,600 start. Okay? Nobody could support her. Her friends couldn't even buy her shit. But because that wasn't what she was designing for, she was designing for like this like high-end 6-foot person, 5'11" female. She, on the side, was designing clothes for herself. And guess what was the stuff everybody wanted? The stuff she was wearing. Yeah. And that was like the normally priced stuff. I mean, it's quite obvious as to our main takeaway, her and I, was like, if you don't have large amounts of capital, like, do I think it could have worked if we just kept on going season after season burning capital? Probably. She was getting momentum. Like, that was for sure. But every fucking collection, she did 3 collections, costed $60,000 to put together, and no sales were coming. And so probably not a great thing to start, right? Like why not start small, and the sweatshirts that you're doing that your friends want that cost $60 they can afford, and you could build momentum and people around you could support. And because you're building something for yourself, you have intuition. So, you know, when you look at this list of shit that we have written down, it was like one of the things was, in my life, I will never again try to do something that was not perfectly designed for Nick. Because if it's perfectly designed for me, I have an intuition. I don't need to guess what the customer wants. I am the customer. You know, going back to like Tim Ferriss, you just need to have a customer of one. And if you have a customer of one, you probably have many customers. And so like on my on this fucking checklist of things that I'll never do again is create products for people that aren't me. Like this is, Midday Squares is everything I want. So when we design our flavors and how it's going to taste, it's like, it's really simple. We don't need to think about anything.
Why is it everything that you want?
I hate a lot of snacks on the shelf. I grew up in an Italian household. I don't have a sugary palate. So my palate is like pretty desensitized to sugar, and I just find everything way too sweet, and all I could taste is sugar. And I'm really not one of those people that's trying to like knock on sugar. You know what I mean? Like that's not the angle we're trying to take. The angle is like, I just think you can make like really amazing snacks with 75% less of the sugar. Like, why does it need to be so much sugar? I hate feeling bloated. So all the protein bars that I eat, they just sit in my fucking stomach. Or like health snack bars, they sit in my stomach. I get acid indigestion. They bloat me. I'm farting every 30 minutes. You know what I mean? Like I hate it. It's so ugly. And so it was just really intuitive what we wanted and how it needs to taste. And it's simple. It's like Elon was asked on a interview the other day. They're like, you know, do you do market research for your cars? And he just kind of laughed. He's like, no, there's no market research at Tesla. We just build what we think is cool. And that's like intuitively really a great way to think about things, in my opinion.
Okay, if Nick was, 20, 21-year-old, what do you think that Nick would do compared to 35-year-old Nick today? Like, how does that Nick, make ends to meet and then makes 5K, 10K, 25K a month, 100K?
Oh.
Or like, what kind of business model would you choose? For example, a lot of people are like, build a personal brand, get an audience, sell whatever the fuck you want. Start with digital product and then physical product. That's like the blueprint.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. So if you're like, I just think there's no better world to be in than the underbelly of the internet if you want to get to your first million. And the underbelly of the internet exists. So it's all the hustlers on, whether you're on Twitter or wherever, there's a million hustlers. You either go to Affiliate Summit West, Affiliate Summit East. Those are 2 conferences that I guarantee if you go there and you really just indulge in it, like you'll be a millionaire within 5 years. Like there's no doubt in my mind.
What does that mean?
Like there's just the hustlers of the internet. Like people don't realize that every transaction online at any moment, 24/7, is transacting in cents. And somebody somewhere is on the other side of that transaction, making that cent at volume. And so we're so used to this world of, Facebook ads is the only thing you can do, or drop shipping or whatever. There is a whole world of the internet that exists, and it exists at Affiliate Summit East and West. And I encourage everybody in their early 20s to get out there, to do it.
And
I really believe.
Just network with people?
Just go, stop at the booths, start showing up every time there's an affiliate summit. Network, go to the booths, speak, play dumb, ask questions. What do you guys do? I mean, there's 150 booths of people involved in transacting millions of dollars. And your job is to figure out how you extract a few pennies
to
on
make
that.
money on the internet.
Mhm.
Step one, no matter like what the fuck you're doing, you have to have a high income skill, right? Something that's tangible that you can sell, or there's any other way to go about it.
No, man. Like, I have a buddy. Here's what I could tell you. We'll start for starters. Following the average path of life is a sure way to not do it. Like, guaranteed. I'll guarantee it right now. Like, and I'm not hating on school. Like, if that's your jam, go do it. You want to go work a 9-to-5 job, like, go do it. Not going to get you to $1 million quick. I would say in the 10 years of your life. It's just not going to happen. I say this every single time, and then we'll get back to the question that you asked. And it doesn't need to be a high-end skill, but it needs to be an average path. Like, that's for sure. My teacher at University of Ottawa opened the semester and was like literally just put this x-axis, y-axis on a board, started plotting dots everywhere, drew the mean, so the average line right through all these dots on a board, circled the above dots, circled the below dots, and then you had the line. And he's like, I don't give a shit what you guys remember in this semester as long as you remember this one thing. In this data set, okay, that I'm showing you, assume anything is in this data set. And we're all kind of like confused as to what he's saying.
Yeah.
It's like, assume anything that's on this data set. By definition, if you provide this data set a piece of data that's on the mean, which is the average, I guarantee that you will have an average outcome to the data set. If you give me a piece of data that's above the average line or below the average line, I guarantee you're going to have an unaverage outcome. I can't promise it's going to be an outlier on the positive or the negative, but I guarantee you will have an outlier outcome. And what that means is, if you take the average path that all your peers are taking, the probability of you having an unaverage outcome falls very close to zero. Like, very close by definition, because the mean of the data set is the average of what your peers are doing. And so you're all living on that line. And so statistically, literally mathematically and statistically, it is nearly impossible to have an unaverage outcome. But I could tell you, if you go to Affiliate Summit East or West and figure out how to work for one of those fucking companies at the booth, and you're not stupid while you're working for one of those companies, and you start to see shit that's going on, high probability you're going to become a millionaire. Like, very high probability.
So that's what Nick would do if he was 21.
100%. If I didn't want to build a personal brand, if you have the courage and the charisma to build a personal brand, there's no easier way in the world to succeed. But here's the thing, it's not easy. No easier way to succeed, but it's not easy to stand out. Because everybody is trying to build a personal brand. And so you have to figure out how you, going back to the data set, are not going to be an average. You know what I mean? Like, everybody and their mother is trying to build a personal brand.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you have an unaverage outcome? And you can, but it's going to take a fuckload of work. And you have to figure out how to differentiate yourself. And most people give up. Most people don't give it enough time to figure that out. And time is a real thing. And the reason why most people give up is because they're broke.
The reason most people give up is because they're broke.
Yeah. The pressure of being broke collapses on them before they find their success.
So how much time do you need to give something like this?
That's the problem. There's no answer. There's no guarantee. That's the problem. There's no guarantee.
Okay, so I'm here.
But it will work eventually. If you are not dumb and iterating, and by the record, When I use the word dumb, I want to be very clear. My definition of dumb is someone that hits the hammer on the head over and over the same way and never changes how they hit the nail. They
Which
never
is basically
change.
everybody.
Yeah, it's insanity, right? I think like literally like Einstein said, the person that hits the nail on the hammer of the head over and over and over and expects a different outcome is insane.
Okay, so well, then my question is, I'm this dude who has a podcast just like everybody, who's trying to build a personal brand like everybody, is learning video editing like everybody. But like, how can I be different? Obviously, you don't have the answer for me. Or should I just keep doing what I'm doing for the next 18 months, say?
I can't answer it that way. I'm going to have to answer it a different way because I'm just not you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is all I can tell you is one, don't ever give up on the dream. Because that's literally the only time it dies.
The dream is a clothing company.
For now.
Got it.
That could change, right?
But yeah.
That could change.
It could change.
The dream, I think if we went even more macro, is you seeing something through that changes the course of your life, that you could live off of the income it generates, and that it fulfills you on a creative level. And for now, that mirage, in my opinion, is the clothing company.
Yeah.
But that could change. But the dream should never die, whether it's clothing, not clothing, like that dream of whatever that creative expression is that you're looking for financial freedom, for whatever that macro dream is. I would push you to go more macro than the clothing. This way, if the clothing thing doesn't work or you ever are inspired by something else, you give yourself permission to change paths.
The idea is to build brands, basically.
Exactly. But I would ask that question 5 times as to why.
Okay.
You follow?
Okay.
Like
yeah,
why?
follow.
And then ask why again. And if you do that 5 times, I think you're going to get to the place of why. And that's the North Star, is that 5th why, not the brands.
Or the third.
Okay. Because there's a lot to unpack there. It could be being proud of something is the motivation from an ego and spiritual level as to why you want to build a brand. Because people ask me all the time, like there's a lot easier ways to make money than building a brand.
100%.
Way easier ways, but there's no cooler way to make money than building a brand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no more epic way. And so I can look at myself in the mirror and be honest with myself that I wanted it not just from a financial reason. I needed it from my like creative, spiritual ego to just know that I and my partners could churn out a brand that people wanted to. There's nothing fucking cooler from a creator perspective than people wanting to eat your shit or wear your shit. Like there's just nothing more satisfying than that. And that usually comes down to like, I don't know, comes down to like these ego things. And so you got to really look at yourself in the mirror and understand like why you want to do this or those things. Because if the answer is money, then we're in the wrong game. You know what I mean? Like, like building a brand is a huge possibility of money, but a very unlikely outcome. Whereas you could probably build like a financial newsletter right now in like a really niche market and like probably get to $1 million a year. Will anyone give a shit about your newsletter? Probably not, but you're gonna be pretty rich doing it. So my thing to you is whatever that fucking macro star is, don't ever give up on it. And eventually it will work. The only people that I know that haven't succeeded at that thing is the people that gave up. Literally.
How do you not give? How do you not give up? Like, bro, there's fucking money is at the end of the day, like that's what rules the world.
Yes.
You need to make fucking money, and then
so it's maybe you take a break to make money, and then you come back to it. It doesn't need to be just one thing and always. That's what I mean by it should never die the dream.
Okay.
You know, maybe it's like, hey, my time's up right now, and I need to make money, and maybe you go become a millionaire another way. And let me tell you, when you're gonna have those millions in your pocket, you're gonna come back and you're gonna say, "Fuck it, I want to try building a brand again." And you're just gonna keep doing that for the rest of your life until eventually you make a brand. Like there's no way if you iterate, it doesn't work. Like I to a point of delusion, I believe in that. Maybe I'm delusional that I believe anybody in the fucking world could iterate their way enough to success given they had infinite money and time. So your job is to solve for money and time and never give up on the dream. Like last thing is like, go for your clothing company. It's either going to work or it's not going to work. And when if it works, you solved your problem. And if it doesn't work, why didn't it fucking work? Make sure that's super clear and get back at it. Like, that's it. You know, it's really that simple.
I mean, life is pretty simple, but
it's so simple. Again, time and how long could you be broke?
Like,
for?
Basically, what's your runway?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like a startup.
Exactly. And so you're just solving for that. So if you need to go create a financial newsletter to build a brand, and that's what you got to do. And so you'll go figure that out. You know what I mean? Like, you'll figure it out. And all I know is the answer to make a lot of money lies in two places: Affiliate Summit, West and East, and or becoming a creator that matters to an audience. And if you do those two things, you'll make the money.
So essentially, I'm going to give you this sketchbook.
Mm-hmm.
I just think of the sketchbook as like a billboard, and it captures creatives' attention in the world. Mm-hmm. Creatives, entrepreneurs, anyone, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Just put a message on it. That's it.
Okay. Do I show the camera?
Yeah, 100%. Did you waste another day? And what does that mean to you?
It means that there is something or anything that you keep putting off. And that could be something, a hard conversation in a relationship, an idea you want to pursue, a move, anything. Every single person I know in my life right now, literally every single person, is wasting another day not tackling a thing. Like I can go down the roster of like every single person in my life, and all of them are wasting another day.
And inclusive. Why are you not wasting another day?
I've put it all on the line. Like I've risked it all. Like everything I want, I am actively pursuing. And the urgency to do so is my highest priority. And so I think I've got it down to like 90 days. We were just talking, me and my best friend, we went on a retreat. People call it a retreat. It was two homeboys chilling in a cabin. That's really what it was for 48 hours in Lake George, New York. We left Friday, Sunday, and we just jammed. And we were both talking about this. Like, I think I've got it down to the longest I wait is 90 days, like max now, to go after something that I'm deeply uncomfortable about going after. So my window's down to about 90 days. That's the max I'll let something linger, which is that thing that you just don't want to do.
Are you able to do things so fast because of your finances?
Finances definitely help. I solved that problem. Coming into Midday Squares, going back to why I think I'm able to succeed with Midday Squares right now is I was financially secure doing it. I don't know if I would do it from a broke standpoint. So that's where kind of my advice is coming is I had that learning kind of early on that I better go make some fucking money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'll get back to this at some point. So I'm not saying everybody needs to do that. I could give you a million I can give you a million stories of people that just like hit it, right? So I just believe everybody's path is different. And that's why my advice is, like we spoke about, it's like time and money are your factors, and then keeping your dream alive. Those are the three things you got to do.
Time, money, and dream.
And dream. A lot of time people will solve for money and forget the dream. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like they'll make money and then they'll stop pursuing their dream because they made it. You know, like maybe, like I'll give you a silly example. I know a guy right now who's ridiculously rich and always wanted to be a music producer. In my head, I don't understand why he's not pursuing that. Like it breaks my brain. And one could laugh, but like I would be seriously pursuing that. In my life, I want to try to make a movie. That's something that's on my board, but I ain't going to do that until I'm probably ridiculously rich, you know, like I'll tackle that then. And I guess I just won't stop until that. Like I want to make a movie. So that's going to happen, or at least the attempting of it's going to happen at some point. And I may be 80, I may be 90. I don't know. I just think people give up on their dreams.
You think long term. I think that's one
like
of the things.
Really long term.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know. Read something. I just like.
Pardon?
Can I read something?
Absolutely.
I put out the other day.
Yeah.
Because I think it sums it up really, really well, what you just said. So people are always looking for the secret sauce, you know, and I get that a lot. And so I wrote this on my story the other day. I said, here's the secret sauce. Think in decades. The game shifts when you commit to one thing for life. Find your craft, your business, your mission, then lock in and build it day after day for years, for thousands of days. Strip everything else away and focus on a single result. Take something small and scale it. Do what feels right, but put in the kind of effort that pushes your boundaries. Because when you are thinking long term, there is no competition. Most are not playing this game. You can't rush this or fake it. It might take years. You might never even find it. But if you do, you'll know, and giving up everything for it will never feel like a cost. And that sums up what you just said.
I think we can end the conversation here. After that, the mic needs to be dropped. Yo, that was crazy. I mean, first and foremost, like we all were able to learn so much. How can creatives, entrepreneurs talk to you? Yeah, man. Follow us at Midday Squares on both TikTok and Instagram. Follow the journey. It's the behind the scenes. See this crazy dream of trying to get to $100 million a year of revenue. We're at $30 million right now. We did that in 6 years. And it was painful, but we're trying to get to $100 million. So follow that journey. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicky Wonka. I love putting out a bunch of stuff there. I'm always putting out shenanigans, talking with people on that platform. Also on LinkedIn, we put out a bunch of content too. So at Midday Squares is pretty much the handle across the board, or That Salt and Nicky Wonka. Who else do you think I should have on the podcast? Ooh. Someone, you know who I want to have on the podcast? Who? Greg Eisenberg. Yeah. I can definitely try to make that intro. I'd love that. I did not know. I was watching the podcast with you and Sahil and Greg. Yeah. And found out Greg is from Montreal. You didn't know Greg's from Montreal? I didn't know, no. So me and Greg grew up together. Like literally come from the same cohort of Montreal entrepreneurs. Like literally, like you guys, right? In this room, we were in that room together our whole lives. Always playing together. So happy to ask him and see what he says.